To continue weather the storm, we must focus our recovery efforts on strengthening the resilience of our economies, our markets.
Opening ceremony of the OJK-OECD conference is about to start. For attendees present at Hotel Indonesia Kempinski, Jakarta, kindly take your seats and be reminded to set phones into silent mode. And for those who attending through Zoom, please be aware of your microphone settings and have them muted during proceedings. Before we begin, I would like to inform everyone that today's session is broadcasted live through YouTube channel Jasa Keuangan and will be available for viewing post-conference. Language interpreters for Bahasa Indonesia can be accessed through the Translate Language menu in Zoom. And if you have any questions for the presenters and also for the speakers, please use the Q&A feature. Thank you. Honorable guests, allow me to express our warmest greetings to our eminent speakers and guests. Minister of Finance of Indonesia, Her Excellency Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati, Chairman of the Board of Commissioners of the Indonesia Financial Services Authority, His Excellency Bapak Wimboh Santoso, Deputy Secretary General OECD, Mr. Yoshiki Takeuchi, Member of the Board of Commissioners of OJK in charge of Consumer Education and Protection Indonesia, Mr. Tirta Segara, Head of Fiscal Policy Agency, Ministry of Finance Indonesia, Mr. Febrio Nathan Kacaribu, Director General, of Information and Public Communications of the Ministry of Communications and Informatics Indonesia, Mr. Usman Kansong, and OECD's committee, distinguished speakers, guests, and all participants. Welcome to Hotel Indonesia Kempinski, Jakarta. You may now take your seats. As our warmest greetings, or as we say in Bahasa, Selamat Datang, we will present a traditional Achenese dance to symbolize blessings from the God Almighty for the success of the OJK-OECD conference. We present you the Ratu Jaru Dance.
Salam assalam salam salam alaikum wa rahmah wa rahmatullah jaradu abla أتجملا جرالن جرالن siplo di ata ule ma'ahlon laki baka Amin Allah sembah amin. Allah berkaramat, Allah ya Rabbi nang roce mawar sejahtera. Tu ilahi ya karim, ampun dosa kamu, Gabrilah nang ronyo, makmur sejahtera nang ro Acehnya, seramo Mekah nang ro metua, pusaka kaya. Urang melaut dan urang mogot, dua sang baguai puncak utama, yang kepangkai bagi getanya, odep lang nang remabur sejahtera. Urang melaut dan urang mogot, dua sang baguai puncak utama, yang kepangkai bagi getanya, odep lang nang remabur sejahtera. Tarik pukarkan but lambulan seput, kara tungkot jenarang engkau jenarang. Tarik pukarkan but lambulan seput, kara engkau jenarang engkau jenarang. Tarik pukarkan but lambulan seput, kara engkau jenarang engkau jenarang. Tarik pukarkan but lambulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik, tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik, tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik, tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet lambu bulan sepot, karo engkau jenara, engkau jenara. Tarik pukarkan bet Kasep di sino.
Wow, it's very wonderful. Once again, please give applause to our beautiful dancers. Such an amazing performance and welcome greetings by the Ratu Jaru dance. It's a classical Chinese dance with elaborate costumes and also has attractive choreography. Ratu Jaru dance is a creative art that expresses spirituality. This dance has also become a symbol of solidarity, friendliness, as well as the awakening of the Chinese people. The dance also has certainly brought an energetic ambience to our opening ceremony this day. Excellencies, distinguished guest delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all participants attending this conference from all over the world. Welcome to OJK-OECD Conference on Financial Inclusion, Financial Consumer Protection, and Financial Literacy in Asia and the Pacific, December 2nd and 3rd, 2021. This conference will explore global policy developments, best practices, and also share perspectives, thoughts on financial inclusion, financial consumer protection, and financial literacy policies and practices to support the well-being of consumers. This event will run for 2 days, starting from this afternoon until tomorrow evening. Let me introduce you. My name is Tiffany Raitama. It's such a wonderful time and precious opportunity for me to be your master of ceremony on this beautiful day. On behalf of OJK, I want to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. We so appreciate your time to join us in this special event. Excellencies, distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite Chairman of the Board of Commissioners of the Indonesia Financial Services Authority, His Excellency Bapak Wimboh Santoso, to give an opening remarks. Please welcome His Excellency Bapak Wimboh Santoso.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, salam sejahtera buat kita semua. Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Honorable Minister of Finance, Ibu Sri Mulyani. Selamat siang, Bu. The Deputy Secretary General of OECD, Mr. Yasuki Takeuchi. Good morning. I believe in Europe is morning time. Then Bapak Detaskara, member of the Board Commissioners of OJK, in charge of consumer education and protection. Notable fellow speakers from Ministry of Finance, Bank Indonesia, and also Ministry of Communication and Information, and also prominent panelists from Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, Financial Service Agency Japan, Bank Negara Malaysia, Central Bank of Cambodia, Reserve Bank of India, and Central Bank of Philippines. Esteemed representative of international institutions, financial regulators and stakeholders in financial inclusion and literacy, and also distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to convey my sincere gratitude to OECD for giving OJK the opportunity to host this series of events. And I also delighted to welcome all prominent speakers, participants from financial regulators, stakeholders, who great attention to financial inclusion, financial literacy, and customer protection around the world. My warmest gratitude to our keynote speakers, Ibu Sri Mulyani, for this event and also enlightening all of us and Indonesia G20 presidency and leads ahead to the country to this crucial time as we are coming out from the pandemic turmoil of COVID-19. And also Mr. Yoshiko Takeuchi, the OECD Deputy Secretary General, congratulations for Takeuchi-san for a new position at the OECD. It is our hope to continue our excellent collaboration for many years to come. Yeah. I would like to really to congratulate on this event, as we are really still in the pandemic COVID-19, and then we are still, focused on our attention really to latest, development of virus strain called the Omicron. Yeah. Then, nevertheless, we have to be also mindful how to isolate ourselves, about a new virus strain that would be, high risk to everybody in around the world. Yeah. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, the ongoing pandemic has prompted business to switch to online distribution channel, and thereby he has encouraged all of us, to switch to online services. In a very short word, the digitalization revolution in various sectors, which ranging from education, transportation, agriculture, health, as well as in the financial services. Yeah. Technology innovation has enabled faster, more convenient, and more affordable to all of us, especially in the financial services. Currently, the financial consumer are able to use wide ranging of product, services, and at a lower cost and anywhere around the world, in very quick services and cheaper and cover the wide area in the same time. No time limit. Yeah. Despite the advantages, the digital economy has raised numbers of challenges that should be addressed, such as cybersecurity, data protection issue, then also abusing of information, then that could be a risk for customer protection. The speed of digital product innovation is faster than consumer literacy. In the case of Indonesia, the level of the financial inclusion has increased in the past few years, reaching the level of 76.2% by end of 2019, an increase from 67.8% in 2016. However, literacy has not grown as fast as the financial inclusion level, which stood at 38% in 2019. This is not specific to Indonesia, but I think the same situation around the world. As an example, consumers' interest in cryptocurrency and other new emerging digital products around the world that offer very high gain investment. However, those investments come with the very high risk because almost no fundamental value. Several regulators around the world have expressed the serious concern on this, that digital financial product may be used for, prone to money laundering activities. Regulators are faced with the challenge to improve consumer literacy in order for the people to understand the risk each financial product and services. Financial authorities therefore need to strike balance between innovation, risk mitigation, and also the consumer literacy. This test needs to be done in addition to ensuring the customer protection, enhancing the financial inclusion as well. Yeah. Speakers, ladies and gentlemen, given the sophisticated nature of digital financial transaction, consumer literacy will need to be enhanced. This is essential to ensure consumer as well as investor safety in efficient digital financial transaction. OJK has paying attention to illegal investment, online lending, that has been taking, rapid enforcement by all these policymaker and also the police, to close 3,800 illegal P2P lending activities. That is the access. Together with the law enforcement, that actually very important for us to make sure that will be, warning for those people who will come up with the illegal activity in these services. So that why the education is very important, information sharing is very important, and then legal enforcement, and also how to make sure that the product they offer to the people is really concerned with the customer protection. And also the issue of the data protection is also our concern here. The government of Indonesia has passed the Personal Data Protection Bill to Parliament. OJK support this bill, and I believe we are stand ready to continue step up the collaboration in the implementation, with all the government agencies and also the other policymakers, to make sure that the abusing the information data information is will be minimized in this country. The other issue is about the cyber security. OJK is in the process of establishing task force on cyber security for financial services industry. To develop a cyber security framework within the corridor of proportionality, fostering cooperation between the relevant stakeholders, and also facilitate the awareness and campaign to the customer. In this case, actually, OJK carry on to enhance good practice and on the financial customer protection, such as promoting the enhancement of market conduct implementation. For example, the issuing regulation about the product life cycle process for the financial institution in Indonesia to make sure that all the rule of customer protection and also market conduct should be to ensure that will be followed by all the financial agency in Indonesia. And also OJK continue promoting the alternative dispute resolution mechanism through mediation and also arbitration between consumers and also the financial institutions, just in case there will be some dispute between the product provider and also the customer. The OJK also keep strengthening the consumer complaint mechanism and the digital platform. And also education literacy is also in this continuous effort by OJK, especially for the unbankable consumer, that basically need guidance from us. Ibu Sri Mulyani, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, it is also important to focus our effort on improving literacy and inclusion. And our target is about the business, the MSME level that actually need support, need information, and then bring them in the one ecosystem to make sure they understand about the rule of the game, they understand about the product, they understand about the risk, and also the rule, of course. Then actually 97% of Indonesian workforce is under the MSME scheme. It is crucial for us, to focus on our attention with the MSME. For this matter, it is important to increase ability and skill of the people who under the MSME scheme, to managing their finance and also mitigate the risk, of the financial product that they engage with. We are hopeful that along with the improvement of the individual, business and financial literacy, the level understanding that actually will bring us with the very strong fundamental of our economy, to support, the economic growth and also to minimize, the access of the development of the digital product in Indonesia. I am pleased for the opportunity to once again to reaffirm OJK bilateral cooperation with the OECD, which cover a wide array of areas, including financial education and also customer protection. One of the agenda is joint host of this event this afternoon. And I believe been several years, Indonesia has an active role, in several committees that are organized by OECD, including International Network on Financial Education, and also that we are very keen to more actively involve the establishment of standard on financial consumer education and literacy and all other agenda of the OECD. And then because the policy tool and guidance provided by the OECD that also generated by the committee has bring us very forward-looking about the risk, how to bring forward, and then also they are relevant to the growth of the digitalization, to make sure the risk of the digitalization and the customer protection will be minimized going forward. With Indonesia being held of G20 presidency, I believe there will be more opportunity for OJK and OECD to continue to work together in pursuing numbers of G20 International Economic Cooperation agenda. I look forward to such opportunity with OECD going forward. Before I end my remark, let me humbly encourage to all of you to step up our collaboration in order to recover together, recover stronger, as the theme of our Indonesia G20 presidency. Thank you, Bu Sri Mulyani. Really it is very strong and very insightful of the team for the G20 presidency. And in our view, it could be achieved by creating more sustainable development supported by resilient, inclusive financial sector with product and services delivered in responsible and sustainable way. I wish you all having a fruitful discussion and also collaboration today and going forward. Thank you very much. I stop my remark. Thank you very much.
Please give applause to His Excellency Bapak Wimboh Santoso. Thank you very much, His Excellency Bapak Wimboh Santoso, for delivering the warm remarks. Distinguished speakers, guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, moving right along, we would like to invite Deputy Secretary General OECD, Mr. Yoshiki Takeuchi, to present his opening remarks. Please welcome Mr. Yoshiki Takeuchi. I'm sorry, Mr. Yoshiki Takeuchi, you mute the audio.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. Excellent. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please, time is yours.
Great. Okay. Let me start again. Hello, Minister Indrawati, Chairman Santoso, board members, colleagues. I am delighted to address you at the start of this OECD OJK conference on financial inclusion, financial consumer protection, and financial literacy in Asia and the Pacific. I would also like to thank OJK for hosting this important conference and the government of Japan for its support. Indonesia is taking over G20 presidency at a critical moment as we are trying to address and build back better from the COVID-19 crisis. According to our latest data, the global recovery continues to progress. The OECD's economic outlook that was released yesterday projected global GDP growth at 5.6% this year, 4.5% next year, before settling back to 3.2% in 2023. This will be close to the rate seen prior to the pandemic. But we see that the growth momentum is slowing. The recovery remains very uneven, with striking different outcomes across economies and policy challenges they are now facing. To continue to weather this storm, we must focus our recovery efforts on strengthening the resilience of our economies, our markets, and our citizens. The COVID-19 pandemic has also underscored the need to enhance consumers' preparedness against the future shocks so that individuals' financial well-being is supported. Focusing on financial well-being must also include targeted policy attention to the increased use of digital technologies in financial services, a trend accelerated by the recent crisis. Many consumers increasingly use digital financial services and transacted online, some for the first time. Others, however, were left behind due to the lack of digital skills and access. Some also fell victim to financial fraud and some scam online. These developments have further underlined the critical importance of financial consumer protection and financial education policies that would ensure the financial well-being and resilience of consumers. Policymakers should learn from these experiences. They should ensure that consumers, and especially the most vulnerable, understand the benefits and risks of digital financial services, as well as how to navigate on an evolving financial landscape. Governments should also be deepening their capacity to rely on digital technologies for the delivery not only of financial services, but also to support financial education. In many jurisdictions, this is already happening, pushed forward by the COVID-19 crisis. For instance, many governments shifted the delivery of their financial education messages and programs online or via other digital tools. This allows them to continue to disseminate financial education messages, especially among people experiencing financial difficulties. Digital financial education tools has also been increasingly developed to support greater individuals and households' financial resilience and to improve their skills to face future shocks. These are some of the lessons learned that we share in our G20 OECD INFE report on supporting financial resilience and transformation through digital financial literacy, and which will be discussed further in session 2 later today. And tomorrow, we will look at the broader issues of financial inclusion and digitalization. These issues draw on the G20 many of our policy options for digital financial literacy and financial consumer and MSMEs protection developed in 2021 under the Italian G20 presidency. This discussion will look at how to maximize the impact of digital enabling factors to improve financial inclusions, such as access to digital infrastructures, connectivity, digital skills, and financial consumer protection. Such enabling factors can target particularly vulnerable groups, including micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, who may face increased exposure to digital risks. Addressing these challenges is critical to make sure that financial digitalization effectively contributes to long-term consumer resilience and well-being. These considerations are central to the OECD's work to support our members and partners in their effort to develop and implement fit-for-purpose financial consumer protection policies. The G20 OECD report on lessons learned and effective approaches to protect consumers and support financial inclusion in the context of COVID-19 highlights that a wide range of measures were implemented to support financial inclusion and protect financial consumers. Further, strengthening coordination and harnessing digitalization to expand product offerings stands out among the effective approaches that have been adopted around the world. Against this backdrop, it is important to develop financial consumer protection frameworks that are fit for the emerging challenges in the financial landscape and that can sustain consumer financial resilience and well-being. In this respect, G20 OECD Task Force on Financial Consumer Protection is currently reviewing and revising the G20 OECD high-level principles on financial consumers protection, first endorsed by G20 leaders and OECD member governments 10 years ago. These principles are the primary international standard for effective financial consumer protection frameworks and have been widely implemented by jurisdictions, including the Asia-Pacific region. The review and the revision of the principles aims to ensure that they continue to reflect the best practices and are forward-looking in the light of market technological policy developments over the past decade. Importantly, this review will also highlight the goal of financial well-being and the impact of sustainable finance and digitalization. These issues will be discussed in session 1 today. We thank the Indonesian G20 presidency for their ongoing support for this review. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, now more than ever, financial consumer protection and financial literacy policies are essential to support better lives. The OECD remains committed to advancing financial consumer protection and financial literacy for all. We look forward to working together with you and supporting the Indonesian G20 presidency on these topics. With many excellent speakers from across the region and beyond, I am sure that we will hear and exchange many experiences over the 2 days. Such exchange and cooperation are essential to deliver better policies for financial resilience. With this in mind, I wish you an insightful and enjoyable conference. And I am now particularly honored to listen to Minister Indrawati's keynote address. Thank you very much.
Please give applause to Mr. Yoshiki Takeuchi. Thank you very much for delivering the warm remarks. Because of another agenda, Mr. Yoshiki has to leave the conference. So we will advance the photo session in order to take a documentation for our conference. We invite Her Excellency Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati, His Excellency Bapak Wimboh Santoso, Mr. Yoshiki Takeuchi, Mr. Tirta Segara, and also Mr. Febrio Nathan Kacaribu. So please give your best smile in the picture frame that we have provided. We will take your picture. Count down by me. Ready? In 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Please give applause. Thank you very much, Mr. Yoshiki Takeuchi. You may leave the conference. Distinguished speakers, guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, moving right along. Now we would like to hear the next speech from the inspiring women leader. It is my pleasure to introduce the Minister of Finance of Indonesia, Her Excellency Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati, to deliver her keynote address. Please extend a warm welcome, Her Excellency Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati.
Thank you very much. Very good morning to all of you from the European time zone, and good afternoon for Indonesia. Pak Wimboh, the chairman of the board of commissioner of OJK, Mr. Takeuchi-san, Deputy Secretary General OECD, Pak Tirta, I saw here, and many others, guests, ladies and gentlemen, and participants. I would like to first express my sincere appreciation to OJK as well as OECD for organizing the International Conference on Financial Consumer Protection, Financial Education, and Financial Inclusion in the Asia Pacific, by inviting me today to deliver a keynote speech on this very important topic and occasion. I would like to also extend my warm welcome to all of you, the participants who attend this conference. It is certainly an honor for me to be here to participate as well as to provide an opportunity for us to be able to explain the priority of Indonesia presidency of the G20 in 2022, especially the topic which is related to the financial inclusion and consumer protection, as well as financial literacy. As we all know, in the last 2 years, we have learned several lessons from our battle with the COVID-19 pandemic. Many countries have provided policy measures to save lives, as well as to protect people. Many governments also struggle to identify what is the right target, which led to the inclusion and exclusion error when they have to do a very quick, spontaneous, given the challenge of the COVID, for example, to provide support for their people. We also see in the last 2 years a rapid growth of e-commerce during this pandemic. People are forced to transform many of their activity using digital technology and economic activity, including, in this case, access to market. They are all then transformed more or less immediately because of this COVID. But the shift to online activity also creating another challenge, that is a cybersecurity issue, such as cyber fraud, scams, data, and privacy breaches. So we use this lesson and try to incorporate this very valuable experience for the G20 with the theme which Indonesia has already choose: recover together, recover stronger. This indicates that Indonesia, within this presidency, commit to work together and not to leave any country or anyone behind. Promoting financial inclusion and literacy, as well as establishing strong consumer protection, will be key to our effort to build a strong and inclusive financial sector and to support sustainable development. Let me start by sharing you what is the update on our economy. As Indonesia, as many other countries also struggle to deal with the COVID-19, Indonesia has already managing the COVID-19, especially from the Delta variant, in a very significant and credible and effective way. Our average positive rate is now below 500 daily, and this is significant progress or improvement comparing to the July figures, which is above 55,000 cases. Indonesia has accelerating and boosting vaccination program, which currently almost close to 60 to 65% of the population. As of November 2021, we've already administered 233.6 million vaccine doses, non-booster, with 7 days moving daily average around 1.4 million people being vaccinated. This put Indonesia in a 5th rank worldwide. But despite this achievement, Indonesia remained vigilant because COVID-19 continue creating a new mutation, which create also additional or a different challenge, as we now witnessing Omicron, the variant of concern. We also have to be very vigilant that the recovery process for all countries in the world is not going to be easy and smooth one. Inflation, for example, has elevated in many advanced countries and emerging countries. This inflationary pressure definitely will force the country to adjust their policy, especially on the monetary side, through a tightening or increasing interest rate. The monetary policy tightening will then have a serious implication or spillover effect for the rest of the world, including, in this case, potential financial market volatility or even crisis. So the federal policy, as well as European Central Bank policy, definitely have a potential spillover effect to the rest of the world. We need to be very vigilant with this dynamic situation. We don't want the world to end up in the situation in which recovery process is still too early and fragile and weak, while the inflation is already taking over. So kind of like stagflation situation or challenge. Indonesia is also now continue to boost our recovery process. We have recorded growth in the second quarter, which is very strong at above 7%, but the third quarter is a little bit tampering with the Delta variant surge increase very dramatically, especially in July and August. So we end up with a growth rate of 3.5% on the third quarter. Overall growth rate for Indonesia this year will be between 3.5 to 4%. And next year, we are aiming for the growth of 5.2%, which is going to be a strong recovery. Indonesia economic situation, as well as our policy formulation at the macro side, has been continuous prudent. We are using our both fiscal and monetary tools in a coordinated way, but this kind of collaboration should not and will not compromise the independence of the central bank. Our fiscal tool is also working very hard, but our counter-cyclical measure continue to be very, very measured and prudent. With those very good combination between fiscal and monetary policy, and the momentum of growth is already recovered, Fitch rating agency maintain Indonesia credit rating at BBB outlook stable. Fitch assessed that Indonesia economic activity has gradually recovered, and also our policy improvement in handling the pandemic, vaccination, as well as our strong performance on a fiscal or state budget becoming prominent in terms of the assessment of this rating agency. So this is a good start as well as a good achievement for Indonesia in dealing with the COVID and recovering the economy. Let me now turn to the G20 Indonesia presidency with the theme and the pillar, which actually become a very important aspect on our presidency. Last night, President Jokowi has officially opened the Indonesia G20 presidency. He iterated Indonesia Recover Stronger theme, in which we won within this Indonesia presidency a stronger global leadership in our attempt to overcome the pandemic impact and to achieve sustainable development. Recover Together refer to how the global economy recovery will require a complex coordination and collaboration among economies. At the same time, Recover Stronger will emphasize the G20 role in addressing structural issues that hinder efficiency, productivity, as well as, in this case, financial inclusion and green economy. There are 3 pillars of reform that are generated that will be also discussed during this Indonesia presidency. The first pillar is promoting productivity. By promoting productivity, we want the recovery is going to be boosted by important productivity on all factors of production. Certainly, equitable vaccine rollout is going to be very critical for productive recovery. We also see digital transformation and financial inclusion, as well as quality of human capital, are very critical to improve productivity of the economy. How the economy should develop financial market and addressing the issue of infrastructure financing as well as digital taxation, these are all is going to be very relevant to improve productivity and using technology. The second pillar is increasing resilience and stability. These pillars include improving pandemic preparedness, protecting countries against policy spillover due to exit policy, as well as enhancing global resilience and addressing the risk of excessive capital volatility. The third pillar is going to be ensuring sustainable and inclusive growth. We believe that we can achieve sustainable growth by incorporating environmental impact on our sustainable finance strategy. We also want to promote financial inclusion, including optimizing the fintech's role in financial and enhancing the role of small and medium enterprises. G20 historically have a strong and positive partnership that will act as an enabler of those 3 pillars. G20 under the Indonesia presidency will play a critical role in directing the policy to achieve sustainable, even and inclusive global recovery. Therefore, it is important to promote policy to improve the functionality of international financial standards and reduce procyclicality to achieve more balanced intermediation and equitable recovery. As a chair of the finance track, under the finance track, the Indonesia G20 presidency will concentrate on 6 priority issues or agenda. The first one, which is very relevant to the discussion, how each country can design an exit strategy to support equitable recovery, both at the macro level and financial sector policy. The second one, addressing scarring effect, especially in the real sector and financial sector, to secure stable and continuous future growth. The third theme or agenda is payment system in digital era, including cross-border payment and central bank digital currency. The fourth theme is sustainable finance, including market infrastructure and policy levers. And the fifth one, is financial inclusion with a focus on digitalization and small medium enterprises. The last one is international taxation, including international tax package, tax certainty, tax transparency, and development, environment, and tax, as well as tax and gender. These are all is going to be not only interesting, but also critical and strategic for the effort of the global economy to recover together and recover stronger. So let me now turn to the financial inclusion and consumer protection. Many studies have found that pandemic provide uneven financial shock, with vulnerable group and small medium enterprises being more impacted by this pandemic. So consequently, the recovery from COVID-19 needs to include all society, especially the most vulnerable one. For the vulnerable and undisturbed population, financial inclusion should act as a shield from the crisis. World Bank survey in 2017 showing that financial inclusion index is 68.52%, while for Indonesia, it's much lower, that is at 48.86%. This indicator highlights the need to accelerate financial inclusion globally. That's why during the Indonesia presidency, we are incorporating Pillar 1, promoting productivity, and Pillar 2, ensuring sustainable and inclusive growth into the financial inclusion agenda. This is also going to focus on digital financing, inclusion, and small medium enterprise financing. Under the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion in 2022 Indonesia presidency, we will focus on 3 outcomes. The first one is the implementation framework of the high-level principle on digital financial inclusion. Considering that the rapid growth of digital financing, Indonesia will encourage financial inclusion through digitalization to increase financial access to both individual as well as small, medium enterprises. The second one, policy option to leverage digital and innovative financing services to small, medium enterprises that will encompass financial services beyond credit products from formal financial institutions, including fintech as an alternative small and medium enterprise financing. The third one, good practices to improve financial services for small and medium enterprises. In this pillar, this will include harmonizing medium and small enterprises to improve the availability and accessibility of disaggregated data. Accelerating financial inclusion is very important within our presidency. But we also believe that some cross-cutting issues beyond those outcomes are also critical. Therefore, we also put consumer protection and financial literacy as our concern for financial inclusion discussion. As mentioned by previous speakers, improving consumer protection will be very, very important as the financial services industry becoming more complex, more dynamic, and even more vulnerable to new risks. We need to strengthen the consumer protection system to increase consumer empowerment, raise awareness of financial institutions, and about the importance of consumer protection. At the end, we do want to achieve the increasing public trust for the financial service sector. During 2018 and 2021, as mentioned by Pak Wimboh, OJK has shut down more than 3,500 illegal P2P lending activity. This is more like a loan shark rather than P2P lending activity. Loan shark with the digital technology. The illegal activity has exposed consumer to exorbitant interest rate and also abusive collection methodology and also even harassment. Strong consumer protection is a necessary condition to ensure the expanding access to financial services will bring more benefit rather than risk to the consumer. The high case of illegal financial activity in Indonesia could not be separated from the relatively still low financial literacy. According to OJK, Indonesia Financial Literacy Index was only at the level of 38.03% by 2019. This level is much lower than Financial Inclusion Index. The numbers suggest that many people in Indonesia use financial services without even have the ability to understand or have the adequate financial literacy. Therefore, we need to improve financial literacy so that customers can utilize financial product in a safe and effective way, and they can also protecting themselves from fraud, potential fraud, and harmful mistake. G20 countries need to develop financial literacy standard by providing an assessment to the tools and also developing strategy as well as program to promote financial education. We need to target especially the poor family, vulnerable groups such as elderly, less educated, small and medium-sized business owner, as well as even startup and also women. These are all the vulnerable group that can become a prey for the financial illegal activity. So let me close to this speech by sharing with you that pandemic COVID-19 provide us with very valuable lesson to learn. We need to find more effective approach to improve financial inclusion. Pandemic has forced us to transform and using digital technology, but it doesn't automatically translate it into financial inclusion or even on a consumer protection and financial literacy. So for this conference to discuss about this very valuable theme is going to be very critical. This discussion is also timely so that we can not only facilitate a discussion toward a better policy on financial inclusion, but how we can, in a concrete way, protect consumer and improve financial literacy that can be easily understood by people. In reviewing and updating the G20 high-level principle on consumer protection back in 2011, the principle which has been adopted as an international standard on financial consumer protection framework in the last 10 years, but we still need to review and to keep the principle which is relevant to the rapidly changing condition, especially triggered by this pandemic. You all maybe remember that back in 2018, when Indonesia again hosting IMF World Bank annual meeting in Bali, we launched the Bali Fintech Agenda. The agenda consisted of 12 policy elements aimed at helping country harness the benefit and opportunity of fintech, while at the same time also managing the inherent risk. The Bali Fintech Agenda is a blueprint which is still relevant for policymakers and the international community to address those issues. I believe this conference is a great platform for brainstorming, and we do hope that all participants will also contributing to the brilliant idea on how we are going to enhance the synergy and developing a new set of policy. I also hope that this conference will provide us with a valuable discussion which will contribute to a greater knowledge and benefit to all of us. I thank you, and I wish you all a very productive conference. Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you very much, Her Excellency Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati. It's very insightful keynote address, and we would also like to thank you to His Excellency Bapak Wimboh Santoso and also Mr. Yoshiki Takeuchi for delivering the opening remarks. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, because another tight agenda, Her Excellency Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati and also His Excellency Bapak Wimboh Santoso have to leave the conference. Once again, thank you for attending the conference. You may leave the conference. Thank you. Distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, following the opening ceremony, now we come to the panel discussion consisting of two sessions. So the first session will be open with a keynote speech from Mr. Febrio Nathan Kacharibu as head of Fiscal Policy Agency, Ministry of Finance, Indonesia. And the panel discussion in this first session will be led by moderator Mr. Miles Larby as acting head of Consumer Finance, Insurance, and Pensions Divisions, OECD. Mr. Febrio Nathan Kacharibu will give an overview to us of recent economic developments in Indonesia for his keynote speech. Please welcome Mr. Febrio Nathan Kacharibu.
His Excellency Mr. Wimboh Santoso, Chairman of the Board of the Commissioners of OJK, Financial Services Authority Indonesia, Her Excellency Ms. Sri Mulyani Indrawati, Minister of Finance Indonesia, Mr. Yoshiki Takeuchi, Deputy Secretary General OECD, honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Warm greetings to all of you. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to OJK and OECD for organizing this international conference on financial consumer protection, financial education, and financial inclusion in the Asia Pacific, and inviting me to deliver the keynote speech on this panel discussion. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to all participants for attending this conference. The topic of this session is developments in financial consumer protection policies and approaches. This is indeed very relevant and timely amid the increasing number of financial products and services offered in the ever-changing landscape of our financial industry regionally and also globally. On one hand, it has the advantage of the opening public access to financial products, services according to their needs. On the other hand, this also raises risk of misuse such as fraud, hacker attacks, illegal data use, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, let me update you some recent development of our Indonesian economy first, both slightly about global economy as well. As you might have aware, global economic growth is projected to be quite solid this year, although some risks still increased. Global economic growth is forecast around 5.6% year-on-year basis. For 2022, it is going to be around 4.3 up to 4.9%. Risks remain due to uneven economic recovery, global supply chain disruption, and difference in terms of level of vaccination speed across countries. In addition, disruptions and also rising commodity prices have pushed up global inflation above 3.5% in 2021, and it's going to be slightly still above that range in 2022 for the number. Indonesian economy for the third quarter of 2021, we had 3.5% economic growth year-on-year basis. This is despite the escalation of Delta variant back in July and August. Clearly, strict implementation of the mobility clearly slowed down public consumption, private investment activities. However, positive growth and expenditure components, especially strong growth in exports, support our recovery. In terms of region, Indonesia experienced a positive economic growth almost all over Indonesia, except for one or two provinces, especially Bali, which is relying on tourism, which is still not recovering yet. Looking into the condition of the digital economy in Indonesia, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, clearly the pandemic has boosted the digital technology penetration in Indonesia inadvertently. With the support of a current very good demographic dividend that we have in Indonesia at the moment, about 60% of Indonesian populations are millennials, and the rising number of digital users. Clearly, this is a very ripe for Industry 4.0 to continue to increase. E-commerce and digital payment is also in ever increasing trend. This is showing Indonesia's digital economy potential very strongly. Ladies and gentlemen, on the other hand, Indonesia's financial sector in general is actually still quite shallow. This is by comparison globally and also even regionally. For example, if you compare it with other ASEAN 5 countries, we have a lower size of banking sector compared to GDP. Not to mention if we look at insurance and also capital market capitalization. This is still illustrating that the capacity of our financial market to raise funds for its development is still below its potential. In terms of the portion of the financial sector assets, banking industry still dominates. This is about 76% of our financial sector. Non-banking financial institutions, especially those that are supposed to provide the supply of long-term funding, like insurance, pension fund, still has a very small portion and role in our financial sector. The capacity of our financial sector to raise funds clearly is still below its potential. Now, Minister Sri Mulyani also mentioned about financial inclusion versus financial literacy. We see that our financial literacy is still very low at 38%. Clearly, we need to improve our financial literacy, which means that our population, our financial services users, consumers, still do not have sufficient knowledge and skills on using financial products and services. And this is clearly is going to be a risk in terms of from consumer side. Ladies and gentlemen, lack of financial literacy, especially in digital financial literacy, could harm financial consumers. Consumers could be exposed to risks such as fraud, identity theft, data breach, cybercrime. Consumer protection becomes crucial to guarantee and create a sense of security for consumers. This is to fulfill their needs by creating a protection system that contains elements of openness, but also transparency and guarantees legal certainty. Financial regulators, OJK, Bank of Indonesia, have built complaints handling and dispute resolution mechanism has to be obeyed by all financial institutions. This is a very good development. Financial services industry, banking sector, for example, received most complaints in recent years, which amounted to about 1,500 complaints, and also about 50% of total dispute resolution. Payment system, for example, also received number of complaints, which is quite decreased in 2022, with credit cards also getting most complaints. So that's interesting to see the developments, and we would like to strengthen that a little bit further as well. On fintech P2P lending, as we all aware, that recently there are many news on illegal fintech P2P lending on the news. At the moment, there are 106 fintech P2P lending registered and licensed by OJK. However, there are also many illegal fintech P2P lending. Minister Sri Mulyani also mentioned about this. There are more than, based on OJK data, there are more than 3,500 illegal entities of fintech P2P lending have been terminated. But of course, we are also looking at a lot of complaints coming from these fintech users recently. High violation includes disbursements without applications approval, threat to disclose personal data, collection to all contacts in cell phone with terror or intimidation, as well as abusive collection, and even sometimes including sexual harassment practices. Currently, consumer protection is regulated in Law Number 8, 1999, about consumer protection. Implementing the regulation of financial consumer protection is regulated in OJK regulation and also BI regulation. Considering this low financial literacy, low financial inclusion, rampant illegal practices, and many complaints in financial sector, and also advances in technology, clearly Indonesia needs to review the policies and regulations on financial consumer protection. In line with the G20 high-level principles on consumer protections, which already mentioned, for example, 1, principles and scope of financial consumer protection. 2nd, regulation and supervision of consumer protection in financial sector. 3rd, rights and obligations of consumers and financial sector business actors. 4th, efforts to increase financial inclusion and literacy. 5th, financial sector dispute resolution. And last, consumer data protection. However, the review of these G20 high-level principles on consumer protections still going to be welcome, and the update of the principles could be a new international standard in reviewing our financial consumer protection policies and regulations. Ladies and gentlemen, consumers, especially in the financial sector, financial services sector, often suffer losses, but the legal instruments to protect them are still inadequate. Therefore, the government always commits to protect financial sector consumers through regulation, collaboration with relevant stakeholders to achieve the goal of increasing public awareness, financial literacy, and financial inclusion, so the consumers will have access to safe, fair, and competitive financial services. I believe this conference is a great platform for us for enhancing our understanding, enhancing our synergy, and also providing a lot of good discussions for this to contribute considerably to greater knowledge and also for better law, better regulation about consumer protection in Indonesia. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for Mr. Febrio Nathan Kacharibu. It's very insightful. Mr. Febrio Nathan Kacharibu, you may leave the conference. From the previous keynote speech from Mr. Febrio, we know that Indonesia's financial services sector continues to experience positive development despite the downturn in global and domestic economy as the impact of the pandemic COVID-19. As Mr. Febrio mentioned earlier, that economic growth in most regions remain positive, even to slowing down. So moving forward, we hope that it will continue to face various challenges. So financial services sector should be developed with the goal to make it highly competitive, able to play an optimal role, and also able to face various challenges amid the dynamics of national and also global economy. Once again, thank you very much for Mr. Febrio Nathan Kacharibu for delivering the keynote speech. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned you earlier, today we will have two panel discussion, two sessions divided into two sessions. So we will start our first panel discussion. There will be a discussion with three panelists, which will be moderated by Mr. Miles Larvey. Okay, hi Mas, how are you? How's there?
Hello, and thank you very much. Good afternoon. I will kick off the proceedings for this session one.
Yeah.
Let me start by thanking our colleagues at OJK for co-hosting this event with us. It looks absolutely terrific. From here, I'm connecting virtually from Paris, but I have to say the technology and the arrangements look really fantastic. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure always to work with our colleagues at OJK and in Indonesia.
Okay.
I also wanted to extend my congratulations to Indonesia for assuming the G20 presidency, and of course to thank Her Excellency the Minister for her keynote address and Mr. Febrio for his keynote speech as well. I think they've really set us up well for this panel discussion. We're going to look in this panel more closely at developments in financial consumer protection, policies and approaches around the world, and with particular reference to the strategic review of the G20 OECD high-level principles on financial consumer protection that were mentioned by the Minister and also by Mr. Febrio. We heard from the Minister how critically important strong financial consumer protection is to protecting the trust, confidence and financial resilience of consumers around the world, and of course supporting financial inclusion, particularly as we heard from the chairman of OJK about the numbers of consumers in Indonesia who are becoming financially included for the first time. We know that there are significant trends and developments in terms of the policy, technology and environmental factors that bring new risks and also new opportunities for consumers. And we need to make sure that financial consumer protection frameworks adapt to those so that they continue to be forward-looking and responsive to the needs of consumers. And of course, this has been highlighted completely by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has really shown how important it is that we protect and support financial consumers in terms of their personal financial situation. We have a terrific panel lined up today who will discuss these issues in more detail. Firstly, we have Mr. Richard Monks, who is the chair of the G20 OECD Task Force on Financial Consumer Protection and also the Director of Strategy at the UK Financial Conduct Authority. We have Ms. Magda Bianco, who is the co-chair of the G20 Global Partnership on Financial Inclusion and also the Director of Consumer Protection and Consumer Education at the Bank of Italy. And we also have Mr. Yuji Yamashita, the Deputy Commissioner of International Affairs at the Financial Services Agency of Japan. Each panelist will speak for about 10 minutes, and then we'll have some time at the end for some questions. So without further ado, let me give the floor to Richard Monks. Richard, please. Thank you.
Many thanks. Miles. And can I just echo, firstly, your comments on how wonderful this virtual event is today. When you see an event like this in Indonesia during the time of COVID, the first thing you think of, I wish COVID wasn't here so we could do this in person. But this is certainly the next best thing. It's a fantastic event. It really looks and feels as close to an in-person event as possible. So thank you so much for everybody who has organised these sessions, and to Her Excellency the Minister Indrawati, His Excellency Chairman Samoto, and Deputy Secretary General Yoshiki Takeuchi. I think in those first three presentations, it was very, very clear this very close link between financial inclusion, between financial literacy and, of course, consumer financial protection. And in the presentation, the keynote we just heard from Fabio Nathan Karachibu, I think in there we saw a lot of actual data, particularly on the Indonesian side, on the really positive growth of financial inclusion. Obviously, financial literacy is slower, and because of that, consumer financial protection has a really critical, important role to play. So I will just focus this morning on the review of the G20 OECD principles for financial consumer protection. Can we just turn to the first slide, please? So just as an introduction in terms of the task force, the G20 OECD task force was established in the wake of the global financial crisis in 2010. And that was part of a strategic response in recognition for the need for greater emphasis and international cooperation on protection and support for financial consumers. The task force comprises delegates from the G20, OECD, and FSB jurisdictions responsible for financial consumer protection policy, law, and regulation, as well as international organizations and standard-setting bodies. So it is the leading international forum for financial consumer protection policy advancement. The OECD provides the secretariat to the task force, and perhaps one of the most important things the task force does is to monitor the G20 OECD high-level principles on financial consumer protection and to keep them up to date. Next slide, please. So I think this diagram was actually taught to, these three concepts were taught to in the opening remarks this morning. So financial consumer protection, financial inclusion, and financial literacy are all critical components. And when these come together, we really think they can support financial well-being of individuals, of families, and communities. So financial consumer protection here refers to the framework of laws, regulations, and other measures that are designed to ensure fair, responsible treatment of financial consumers in the purchase and their use of financial products. And financial consumer protection is essential to ensuring trust and confidence in the market, and it contributes to the financial well-being of consumers, which of course is even more important given the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is recognized in the G20 Financial Inclusion Action Plan, which notes that financial consumer protection and financial education are key cross-cutting themes. Next slide, please. So the task force also does a lot of work in supporting G20 presidencies. And we've supported G20 presidencies over a number of years. So this year, we've been particularly strongly supporting the Italian presidency, and we'll hear from Magda shortly, by developing the report on lessons learned and effective approaches to protect consumers in the context of COVID-19. The previous year, in 2020, the task force provided input that helped the Saudi presidency advance their digital financial inclusion on youth. And in support of the Japanese presidency in 2019, the task force provided input that supported the G20 Fukuoka policy priorities on aging and financial inclusion. And we're really looking forward to working with the G20 presidency, in particular with the focus on the review of the principles. Next slide, please. So where did these principles start? Well, they were developed in response to the call from G20 leaders to enhance consumer protection in the wake of the global financial crisis just over 10 years ago. They were endorsed by G20 leaders at the Cannes Summit in 2011. They were adopted by the OECD Council in 2012. They are included in the FSB Compendium of Standards, and as I said, referenced in the G20 Financial Inclusion Action Plan. So they are the leading international standard for financial consumer protection frameworks. They have been adopted by all G20, OECD, and FSB jurisdictions, and many other countries have also used them as the basis of establishing or enhancing their financial consumer protection frameworks. Next slide, please. So these are the principles as they are in and of themselves, as they were created 10 years ago. And as the minister said earlier, it's really important to keep these relevant and to keep these up to date. And when we look back on these, they worked when they were created 10 years ago, but now they don't include many key developments in terms of how financial service markets has developed in the last 10 years. So as we'll come on to shortly, there's a lot of things which we now think we need to include in the principles that aren't there currently. Next slide, please. So the 10-year anniversary of the creation of the principles creates a timely opportunity to review and update the principles to ensure they continue to reflect best practice and are forward-looking. So the objectives of the review are to assess the implementation of the principles. So how have the current principles been implemented globally? Secondly, is to evaluate the effectiveness and continued relevance of the principles. And finally, and I think the most exciting thing for me, is to identify the developments that require revisions to the principles so they continue to reflect best practice and are forward-looking. And OECD, G20, FSB jurisdictions, and 10 other countries are participating in the review, including from the Asia-Pacific region, a total of 55 countries. And next slide, please. So moving to the findings of the review. So the first key finding is that the current principles have been widely and broadly well implemented. So the majority are fully implemented or close to full implementation. So we found this as a really positive finding in terms of the principles have been adopted on a global basis. Next slide, please. We also sought views from respondents about the importance and relevance of the principles. There was very strong support for the continued importance and relevance of the principles. We spoke to countries, we spoke to businesses, we spoke to consumers, and they all considered that the principles continued to be both important and relevant. Perhaps this shouldn't be surprising. In recent years, financial consumer protection have become more important and had more global focus, in particular as financial inclusion has grown, which creates huge benefits for the world. Alongside that, we need to ensure people are protected. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there are a number of new and very significant policy developments relevant to financial consumer protection that just weren't there 10 years ago. They've evolved more recently. And all of these developments have been supported by participants in the review from jurisdictions, business stakeholders, and consumer groups. So these policy developments include lessons from COVID-19, digitalization, financial well-being, sustainable finance, consumer vulnerability, access and inclusion, good quality financial products, a focus on consumer outcomes, the role of culture within firms, the use of behavioral insights, and risky products, and the use of particular powers to intervene in respect of risky products. Just highlighting a couple of these to really pull out. Obviously, the focus of the conference today is on consumer protection, but also access, inclusion, and literacy. There's going to be a new focus on access inclusion that isn't in the current principles. Equally, with the great opportunities provided by digitalization, it really creates a great opportunity for people all around the world to benefit from financial services. But with that comes risks. So again, digitalization wasn't a focus of the current principles and is absolutely going to be critical in future. Similarly, something like sustainable finance, we see has a growing influence around the world and an influence on the financial sector. So key to include developments such as this. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, the review of the principles provides an important opportunity to incorporate the lessons learned from the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the review will build on the work conducted by the Global Partnership on Financial Inclusion, GPFI, this year under the Italian presidency, to develop a menu of policy options on enhancing digital financial inclusion beyond the COVID-19 crisis. Next slide, please. So in terms of the conclusions from the report, there's widespread implementation of the current principles. The principles remain important and relevant to all jurisdictions, but there have been a lot of policy developments in the last decade, plus, of course, lessons from COVID-19. So we are proposing that the principles be revised to take account of the findings and to ensure they reflect best practice and are forward-looking. And we're encouraging jurisdictions to examine ways to improve dissemination of the principles, particularly around communication. Next and final slide, please. In terms of next steps, in terms of the review, so we're currently at phase 3. It's worth remembering that all G20 countries, as well as the OECD and many other countries, are participating in the review. And we look forward to achieving a really solid set of revised principles in the near future. And we're really looking forward to consulting and engaging with our colleagues in the GPFI on the revisions to the principles and progressing this work under the Indonesian presidency of the G20 in 2022. This is, I think, a really exciting opportunity to show leadership in this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Richard, for that presentation. And I think it's a perfect segue to our next panelist, Magda Bianco from the Bank of Italy. Magda, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Miles, and thank you to the OECD and to OJK for this invitation. It's really great to be here today. So good afternoon to everybody. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you see my presentation.
Yes, we can see it. Perfect.
Okay, so I'll give you some evidence of developments in financial consumer protection policy and approaches that might be useful for a revision of the principles. And I will try to draw from the Italian experience and partly from FinConnect, and especially from the work of GPFI, the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion in 2021, which, as Richard mentioned, worked a lot on these issues. And I must say, as co-chair of GPFI, I'm really looking forward to work together with Indonesia this coming year. The Italian experience, I will say a few words related to the evolution of our 4 pillars that are the basis of financial consumer protection. Laws, I won't say very much on this, public enforcement, private enforcement, and financial education. And for each of these, I will say something about the relevance of the new issues in terms of using the principles and revising them. But before going into the pillars, let me say that the context, of course, is changing for all of us. Innovation policies are becoming very relevant for financial consumer protection as well. Here, I give you some examples of what we are doing in Italy. We have now a regulatory sandbox, a communications channel established by the Italian Central Bank. And then just recently, we have established an innovation hub as the Italian Central Bank. And the first call of the innovation hub had inclusion and consumer protection as the main topic on which proposals should be submitted. So this area is becoming very relevant, and hence the principals might have to take care of this as well. But let's go to the second pillar, public enforcement, that is banking supervision. Here we had major advances in terms of the analysis, use of data, machine learning and data mining to analyze complaints, and the possibility to draw a better founded risk outlook for our work. But then we had also major evolution in terms of the tools that we use for supervision. We are starting to use advancements in behavioral insights, but also neurofinance. We have created a consumer protection model similar to the one used by prudential supervision. We started using branches inspections, and we look forward to use mystery shopping. Here, principle 2 is relevant, but it might be also be updated somehow. Then about powers that we use. We have product powers in terms of product intervention, but also redress powers, the possibility to impose firms, banks, and intermediaries to reimburse clients. And of course, we have product oversight and governance power somehow related to European regulations. And here, principles 3 and 6, I think, are affected and might require somehow an update, a revision. In terms of issues, in terms of problems coming up, we have an issue of vulnerabilities and inclusion due to branches closure. It's an experience that I guess we share with many other countries, with clients not being reached physically by intermediaries. And we have major issues in terms of frauds and scams coming from the digitalization of the financial systems. Here we have work of FinConnect as well on digitalization of payments and the risks for clients and how consumer protection should evolve. Here, principles 7 and 8 are a good guide. We might think of updating slightly, but they already offer a very good coverage. Then the third pillar, private enforcement. In this area, we have strengthened a lot our complaints management area, also with the help of machine learning and data mining to quicken our responses and to better use the data coming from this area. We have also substantially strengthened our ombudsman. We have an ombudsman with 7 panels across the country, giving quick responses to clients. I think redress mechanisms are becoming really essential, especially due to digitalization and the risks for consumers in the financial services area. Here we have the principle 9, which covers, and again, might be possibly strengthened to take into account the possibility for these mechanisms to work better with the help of digitalization. And for example, we are starting to use artificial intelligence to quicken the decision process of our ombudsman. The fourth pillar is financial education. You have talked a lot about this. Now we have major challenges, how to reach really all the population. And here we're starting using campaigns, TV campaigns, use of various instruments. We need to use surveys to better understand needs and levels of literacy of the various segments of the population. And we have to work a lot on methods to be really effective. And here behavioral behavioral insights might be really helpful. We have principle 5, which is very relevant. Again, there might be a possibility of slightly updating it to take into account all these new instruments. Let me move to GPFI work this year in 2021. Here are 2 reports which were very helpful in drawing lessons from the pandemic on digitalization, how to ensure that digitalization is a source of increased inclusion and minimization of the risks coming from digitalization. As anticipated by Richard, we developed from these reports a menu of policy options of essential effective approaches developed by single countries that might be used as examples from other countries. And here I will give you just a few examples from them. One relevant example in terms of consumer protection is the principle related to supporting individuals and micro and small and medium enterprises by incorporating appropriate hardship arrangements into financial consumer and MSMEs protection frameworks. Learn from the COVID experience and draw what have been the best practices, taking them into account in drawing our financial consumer protection frameworks. Other areas in terms of leveraging digitalization. The first is favoring protection by design for new digital financial products and services that is requiring firms, financial firms, to have the protection of consumers in their mind when they start drawing new financial products. This might be taken into account into Principle 6, but we have to see. The second policy option is supporting inclusive financial innovation by embedding financial inclusion objectives in innovation policies, such as innovation hubs or handboxes. And again, this is something that might be taken on board by Principle 6, but it's not obvious. Then number 4, using behavioral insights to improve financial consumer protection, but also financial education. And here, again, this experience, which has been used by countries, for example, by designing apps, nudging consumers into effective behavior, might be taken on board by Principle 5 or 6, but again, with a question mark. And then we have the area of addressing risks, how to address effectively risks. And here we have the option, the menu option, which is stepping up effort to identify groups at risks of financial exclusion, how to use data to identify vulnerabilities, and hence Principle 3 might come as relevant, ensuring a fair treatment of all consumers. Second point is addressing risks of online fraud and scams and mismanagement of personal data. This is a problem that we are all facing. And here, I think Principles 7 and 8 are already of great help. Third point, introducing and strengthening effective redress mechanisms to protect consumers and micro and small and medium enterprises. Here we have Principle 9. I think it might be strengthened because I think this mechanism is becoming really, really relevant to ensure trust into financial products and services by consumers. And then 4, enhancing the use of digital tools to assist public authorities. We are all experiencing sub-tech mechanism to be more effective. I think here we might think of updating or strengthening Principle 2, but again, there is a question mark here. So I think this summarizes the challenges that we have for financial consumer protection principles that have been very effective in helping us all these years, but certainly might be even more helpful if we address a revision. So thank you very much.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Magda. And I really, really like how you building on what Richard was saying and connected how we can build on the work of the GPFI and incorporate some of those lessons into the review of the principles. Let me now give the floor to our third panelist, Yuji Yamashita from the Japanese Financial Services Agency. And I should also acknowledge that the participation of the OECD in this event is supported by the government of Japan. Yuji, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone in Indonesia and OECD. Today, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to make a presentation about consumer protection measures in aging Japan. Next slide, please. I chose this topic because, firstly, as Richard mentioned, Japan played a part in this area when Japan was G20 presidency 2 years ago. But also, in any sense, fortunately or unfortunately, Japan is a front runner of aging. First, let me mention population over 65 is about half of the working age. Also, it is growing fast. Here, I want to emphasize that aging is basically global phenomenon. Other countries will catch up with Japan sooner or later in decades. That means the problems Japan is facing now are your problems in decades. Next slide, please. So today, I especially touch upon the issue of aging with people with dementia. So actually, in Japan, already the number or proportion of people who suffer from dementia in aging people is around 20%. It is expected to increase rapidly, so it will reach around 25% in 2060. Next slide, please. This is the diagram about financial assets held by elderly people. Actually, proportion of financial assets held by old-aged people is increasing. It is already, as of 2014, around 2/3 of financial assets are held by elderly people. Also, the proportion is expected to rise to around 70%. I believe this fact and trend has important implications for consumer protection. Next slide, please. So the result is simple. Financial assets held by people with dementia is also increasing. Actually, the proportion is already around 7%, but it would reach to around 10% in 2030. Next slide, please. So today, I want to discuss with you what would be the implications of cognitive difficulty. So financial institutions, FIs, are required to respond to such customers with cognitive difficulties in managing their assets who tend to, for instance, lose their banknotes and cash cards frequently. Also, those who are unable to operate ATMs or take necessary procedures at bank branches. Also, those who tend to forget their own past transactions and asset balances. So Japanese government, including Japanese FSA, fully understand the issues. So we, JFSA, did lots of intensive interviews to know the voices or views from various related parties. There are many voices. The first voice was, families tend to avoid such topics such as dementia. Needless to say, dementia is not a pleasant topic. But however, it is important that all family members discuss what to do before anyone in the family has dementia. The second opinion is financial institutions tend to stop taking care of customers once they leave home to stay at special nursing facilities for elderly. Next slide, please. Another view was if financial institutions and social welfare institutions are allowed to exchange information on dementia of customers at an early stage, appropriate responses would be possible. However, financial institutions are not able to disclose relevant information to other parties due to the requirements of private information protection. This works as a barrier for the cooperative actions. So this shows there is a trade-off between consumer protection in terms of information protection and protection of vulnerable people with dementia. Finally, I also want to show the voice that financial institutions don't understand the practices or challenges of, say, nursery facilities for elderly and vice versa. The specialists for elderly care don't understand problems of financial institutions. Next slide, please. So of course, there is no magical solutions, but I want to say to you that key messages are threefold. First, the role of financial institutions in supporting people with dementia is very important. Number two, however, it is also true that what financial institutions alone can do is limited. Number three, therefore, it is essential for financial institutions to cooperate with relevant institutions, including, say, local governments, hospitals, nursery facilities, and other social welfare related organizations. Next slide, please. So what would be the possible policies for customers with cognitive difficulties? They are suggestions by the Council of Japanese FSA. First, there could be some protection measures for customers with cognitive difficulties. Number one, financial industry is expected to formulate guidelines to facilitate financial institutions' flexible responses, for instance, financial transactions by an agent as a guardian. Number two, strengthening of cooperation with social welfare related organizations. Number three, compilation of best practices of services for elderly customers. For instance, financial products and services that satisfy elderly customers' needs. Number two, in advance measures in preparation for the deterioration of customers' ability to make judgments. Number three, specific counseling services for elderly customers. And finally, follow-ups of elderly customers after selling financial instruments. Next slide, please. This is the suggestion about development or use of digital technologies to refine regulations. The left-hand side is about current situation. What is going on now is, say, uniform or boilerplate type responses to old-aged customers in selling financial instruments based on certain age. For instance, authorization by senior management is required for customers over 75. In that case, the age 75 works as a white and black criteria. The right-hand side is the possible potential approach for the future. Say, flexible responses to those customers who properly understand the natures and risks of the products, even if they are over 75, by using data on customers' financial condition, experience, and judgment ability. Also, at the same time, careful responses is needed to those who will buy high-risk products regardless of their age, including those under 75, in light of their experience and judgment ability. So with the help of IT, if we can have a world in which financial institutions can respond flexibly regardless of the age. Next slide, please. So they are abstracts from the G20 Fukuoka policy priorities on aging and financial inclusion. So there are two headlines: support lifetime financial planning. The second heading is customize to address the diverse needs of older people. What I told to you are perfectly in line with Fukuoka principles. Next slide, please. So as Richard explained, we are now trying to revise our high-level principles. So I hope our revisions reflect the problems of aging again. Okay, next slide, please. So I want to wrap up. My conclusions are, my first message is aging is a global phenomenon and progressing rapidly. Secondly, responding to cognitive difficulty is a major challenge from the financial consumer protection perspective. Thirdly, financial institutions can play a vital role in addressing these issues, though what financial institutions alone can do face limitations. And finally, it's important to provide financial products and services fully taking into account that the elderly's health and cognitive situations and their needs are so diverse. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yuji, for that terrific presentation and for that perspective from Japan. And I think what you've done there is you've really highlighted the issue of vulnerability of consumers, how consumers in the population can be vulnerable, and how consumer protection frameworks need to adapt and respond to those needs of vulnerable consumers, whether it's due to aging or other factors. And that is, of course, a very important point that will be picked up in the review of the principles, as you mentioned. I'm conscious that we are over time and there's a busy schedule this morning. So I'm proposing not to turn to questions and answers for our panelists because we need to move on to the next session. But just in terms of wrapping up, I think what we've heard from our panelists is a really terrific overview of the developments and challenges and approaches in terms of financial consumer protection. We heard from Richard Monks, the framework, the policy framework of the G20 OECD principles and the work that is underway to review them. And that was really complemented by Magda Bianco's presentation in terms of the Italian experience and their approach to financial consumer protection, but also very importantly, how the work of the GPFI under the Italian presidency this year in terms of looking at the lessons from COVID-19 can really feed into the review of the principles and some really important issues to be picked up. And then we heard from Yuji Yamashita, I think a very good illustration or an example of how a group of consumers can be facing vulnerability in the population and the need for financial consumer protections to respond to be able to meet their needs. So let me finish the panel by thanking all of our panelists very, very much for their presentations and their contributions. It's been a really terrific discussion, and the presentations are really rich and interesting. And I'll hand back to our MC. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Miles, and also to our speakers. Yeah, thank you, Miles, and to our speakers. Thank you for lead these sessions. We are really great to having new and also a fresh perspective from this panel discussion. Once again, thank you to Miles and to our speakers and this first panel discussion. Okay, distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, moving right along to our next panel discussion, our second session for this first day. But I would like to remind to all the participants, if you want to drop the questions, feel free to drop or type your questions through the Q&A feature. Okay, let's start the second session with a keynote speech from member of the Board of Commissioners of OJK in charge of Consumer Education and Protection, Mr. Tirta Segara. Mr. Tirta Segara will give an overview to us about digital financial literacy in supporting financial resilience during and also after the pandemic. So please welcome and give applause to Mr. Tirta Segara.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for the opportunity given to me to deliver some notes for discussions in these sessions. In this regard, I would like to share the Indonesia's experience on how financial literacy and financial inclusions play pivotal role in maintaining economic resilience and promoting economic recovery during the pandemic. Excellencies, Ibu Sri Mulyani and Pak Wimboh Santoso, distinguished panelists and moderator, OJK, OECD, and government esteemed officials, financial regulators, and industries, ladies and gentlemen. Very good afternoon, good morning, and good evening for those on the other side of the globe. Allow me to begin my remarks by underlining the adverse impact of the COVID-19 to our economy. The pandemic, which is actually a public health crisis, has brought some negative consequences to our economy, in particular to the household finance and MSMEs. Taking place in most areas throughout the country, many households experience financial difficulties such as reduced income, lack of savings, while their family business was hard hit, laid-offs, and many people need to switch their jobs to informal one. Meanwhile, the MSMEs also confronted some challenges such as lower or losing demand of their products, employee reductions, and also decrease in asset values. They all need helps, at least for loan restructuring and additional capital in order to survive. In such a situation, we believe that in addition to the loan restructuring, improving financial sector access or inclusion is an urgent measure, as it would help those vulnerable groups to remain survive. The MSMEs not only could maintain their resiliency, but could they improve their business by grabbing opportunities in the adaptation to the new habits. The unbankable small and micro businesses must be provided with access to digital non-financial products like crowdfundings or P2P lendings. Yes, with a necessary short training, education, or guidance, of course. Again, only a few of these borrowers can calculate the compound interest due to a low literacy rate. Increasing financial inclusion, in this case by promoting digital financial products, which is suitable to the pandemic situation, became an effective tool to maintain economic resilience and helping National Recovery Program, so-called PAN. Needless to say that digital financial products offer many conveniences, such as accessible via online or cross-border, anytime, anywhere, as well as very quick process. The government indeed also utilize the branchless banking channels or branchless banking network to deliver the non-cash social assistance to more than 40 million households as beneficiaries. As we all noted, improved access to digital financial services requires higher level of digital financial literacy. At the same time, from OJK side, we need to strengthen the consumer protection to strike the right balance between innovation and financial consumer protection. But the problem is our financial and digital literacies are relatively low. Our survey 2 years ago shows that the average literacy rate is only 38%, and the digital literacy rate is only 3.5 out of 5 scale. From the same survey, it was only 36% of Indonesia adults who know the existence of online or digital financial services, and only about 31% of respondents use digital financial services, which mostly only for bill payment. Against that background, we committed to conduct more massive and broader financial and digital education or literacy programs. We changed or switched the modes of education from face-to-face to digital means or online. The use of digital channels such as Zoom webinar, YouTube live streaming has enabled us to conduct more frequent, massive, and broader reach-out financial literacy programs efficiently. Considering low literacy levels of Islamic financial and capital market, we also pay more attention to the Islamic and capital market financial literacy. Strengthening the strategic alliance is also the key to success of financial literacy program. In this regard, we collaborate with the industry. Thanks to the financial sector industry for their strong commitment that every office has promised to conduct at least 2 times financial education a year. In this regard, the result is also encouraging, given the number of financial institutions office in Indonesia is more than 2,000 offices. We also have close collaboration with government institutions such as Ministry of Education, Ministry of Religious Affairs, as there are almost 30,000 Islamic schools under the Ministry of Religious Affairs, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, as well as Ministry of Internal Affairs. And also we have close collaboration with universities to support our education program. In this regard, OJK also strengthened the financial education infrastructures, among others, by developing learning management systems. For now, it only consists of 9 learning modules, but it will be developed later, which can be accessed via our website. We also provide educational materials on financial literacy for formal schools from elementary to university level, both in printed and soft copy or digital formats. And recently, we introduced household financial management to new couples by providing a small booklet for brides and grooms. Honorable panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to report that the result and achievements of our program has been encouraging. OJK itself conducted more than 1,000 financial education programs during the pandemic and reaching millions of audience. During 2021, we also utilized social media such as 12 live Instagram with 14.3 thousand viewers. And our mini site Sikapi Uangmu with 404 content and 3.3 million viewers. Financial education with influencers, with 14 influencers and followed by 2.6 million visitors. And we also used 43 radio networks, radio stations in 35 cities with almost 400,000 listeners. And last one, but not least, we also use public service advertisement with 9.4 million impressions. And the industry conducted even more, reaching more than 2,500 education programs, including thousands of activities during Financial Inclusion Month in last October. Ladies and gentlemen, low digital literacy coupled with financial difficulties faced by many households during pandemics has caused growing financial scams offered via digital channel or social media. They pretend to be registered or licensed institution with OJK, but apparently they are scam. It looks easy, but the interest rate charged is extremely high, and they employ unethical debt collectors. We are grateful to have a task force on investment alert. The task force is very effective in combating investment scams, given that it consists of 13 government institutions and OJK, such as the National Police, Office of Attorney General, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, Ministry of Cooperatives and SMEs, and so on. During the pandemic, the task force closed down about 425 illegal investments, more than 1,700 illegal P2P lendings, and 88 illegal pawn shops. We also empower the task force on financial access acceleration under the district governments, which now account for more than 325 task force to combat against loan sharks. In this case, OJK created and introduced the generic model for credit against loan sharks. The main feature of this credit is only small amount, but can be accessed quickly and with low cost. Some districts even apply zero interest rates for this scheme. And this slide is going to be my last slide. So as we all noted, financial digitalization has beneficial to many people and communities and can create social and economic betterment. But on the other side, there are also some challenges remain. So these are the challenges that may be discussed further. And with this, I will stop my presentation here. And thank you very much for your attention. And let me return the floor to Kiara. So thank you very much.
Once again, give applause to Mr. Tirta Segara. Very excellent keynote speech from Mr. Tirta Segara. Okay, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as Mr. Tirta mentioned earlier, that to improve our financial services, that we need to boost financial and also digital financial literacies and education progress. So it needs good collaboration with all financial sectors and also for the government. And recently, OJK also support developing and learning management system. Distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we will start our second session for today. Okay, so we will enter the panel session with 3 panelists. Will be guided by our moderator, Ms. Chiara Monticone. Ms. Chiara Monticone is Senior Policy Analyst, Financial Education, OECD. So please welcome Ms. Chiara Monticone. Chiara, good afternoon from Indonesia. How are you? It's really great to see you.
Good afternoon to all of you. It's really exciting to be here today and to see more than 1,000 people connected. This is really great.
Yeah.
So before going into presenting our speakers today, I would like to show a few slides to set the scene and introduce the discussion, the panel discussion for session 2. I also have to thank Mr. Tirta Sigara for the excellent keynote speech, which leads very nicely to our session today. So session 2 will be about the role of digital financial literacy in supporting financial resilience during and after the COVID pandemic. I have a few slides, please. So the rationale for the session is really the recognition that the COVID-19 crisis brought to the front the issue of financial resilience, which was, of course, one of the main policy goals for many policymakers, but now this has become even more urgent and important. And we all know that at the same time, the crisis also accelerated the shift towards digitalization in many domains of our lives and in our societies, not only in digital financial services, as we have heard earlier today, but also in terms of the delivery of a various range of policy responses, including financial education. So the aim of the session today will be to explore the potential of digital financial education to support greater individual financial resilience and ultimately to support their financial well-being, while at the same time taking into account the need not to exacerbate risks of digital exclusion for people who may have difficulties in accessing digital tools. So the OECD and the International Network on Financial Education have been working on these topics for quite some time now. And we have a dedicated working group on digital financial literacy and a dedicated work stream on financial resilience. And all of this has led into the publication of the G20 OECD info report on supporting financial resilience and transformation through digital financial literacy, which we had the honor of preparing for the G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion this year. And with this, I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the co-leaders and of the GPFI and the Italian presidency for their support in helping us developing this report. So we already know that even before the COVID crisis, financial resilience was limited for important segments of the population. So by financial resilience, we mean the ability of people to resist, cope, and recover from shocks with negative financial implications. So we know that many people had problems in coping with large unexpected expenses of losses or income, and were already experiencing over-indebtedness and even financial fraud and scams, which of course have a great detriment to individual financial resilience. And we have seen that the pandemic has even worsened the situation, and in particular for certain groups of the population, thereby increasing existing inequalities to a large extent. And I know that most of the speakers today will give you their insights and experiences in their own countries of how the COVID pandemic has affected financial resilience. So the purpose of the session today will be to explore the advantages, but also the potential challenges of using digital tools in financial education to address the situation. So digital financial education has a great potential. It can, of course, help to increase the reach and scale up financial education interventions. It has the potential to lower costs per user. It can be easily adapted to changes in circumstances and in developments in the financial markets. And particularly, it lends itself very nicely to embedding features and insights from behavioral sciences in terms of providing tailored information, just-in-time information to allow people to experience and to learn about how to make better financial decisions by way of simulations, games, and so on. And this also includes the features of using reminders, alerts, and so on to nudge individuals into positive and responsible financial behaviors. And digital tools also have great opportunities in terms of monitoring and evaluating how users are interacting and using the financial education interventions and tools. At the same time, we all know that not all groups in the population have necessarily access to digital infrastructure or have the skills to use digital tools appropriately and safely. And the use of such tools may need further adaptations in terms of training trainers and adapting content and materials, and may also raise issues related to personal data protection in the digital environment. However, we have seen, especially in the G20 report that we prepared this year, that digital delivery can support financial resilience in a number of ways, including supporting financially resilient behaviors, such as including the safe use of digital financial services, helping people becoming aware and avoid becoming victims of financial fraud and scams, which of course have increased and have become increasingly transmitted online during the pandemic, and also support behaviors that underpin greater financial resilience, such as budgeting, saving, insurance, using credit wisely, and so on. And they can also be tailored to the needs of specific vulnerable groups, including young people, seniors, women, migrants, minorities, and micro and small businesses. And in doing this, of course, care needs to be taken to adapt the digital tools not only to the needs of the various target audiences, but especially to the people who may have more difficulties in using them. And in this respect, the G20 report we prepared this year contains a series of selective, effective approaches of what we have seen, the good practices that we have seen happening already around the world through the INFA network. And in this respect, I especially wanted to highlight the opportunity that is, in a sense, also offered by the current situation to treat the crisis as a teachable moment, to attract people towards reliable financial education sources and develop long-term strategies to address their needs. And as I said, to fully exploit the potential of such digital tools to help preventing financial vulnerability, to leverage on the lessons from behavioral insights, to support financially savvy and resilient behavior changes, to adapt the content and format to the needs of the people who may need to improve their financial resilience the most, and to ensure that the delivery meets the needs of the groups with limited digital access and skills. So I will conclude my short introductions with some considerations for the future, and I know that many of these will be picked up by our great speakers today. So in this context, it's really important to look beyond the COVID crisis and the emergency that we are all facing now, and use this as an opportunity to focus on the longer terms, to both focus on financial resilience, not in a sense as rebuilding a previous state, but really to build back better, which also links, of course, to the priorities of the Indonesian presidency for G20 in 2022, and to use this as an opportunity to look also beyond financial resilience and really focus on individual financial well-being, which is the ultimate goal of all our policies in financial education and beyond. So with this, I will stop sharing my screen. And I have the pleasure of introducing a great lineup of speakers. We will start from Pa Usman Kansong, who is Director General of Information and Public Communication of the Ministry of Communication and Informatics in Indonesia. We will then turn to Mrs. Dora Lee, who is General Manager at the Investor and Financial Education Council in Hong Kong, China. And we will close with Mrs. Rachel Beckett, who is National Partnership Lead at the Retirement Commission in New Zealand. So I'm very excited and I'm looking forward to hearing all these presentations. So without further ado, let me give the floor to Mr. Usman Kansong. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kiara. Distinguished participants and panelists. First of all, I will inform you that the Ministry of Communication and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia has two duties or functions. First, doing the digital transformation, and the second is doing the public communication and education. My slide, please. Okay, I'm sorry, this is in Bahasa Indonesia. I have sent to the committee the slide in English. Okay, the Indonesian society now is in a digital era. We are enjoying digital transformation from manual based to electronic based, and from physical meeting to online meeting by Skype, Line, WhatsApp, Zoom, etc. Next slide, please. This is the President Jokowi's directives to us to do the digital transformation. There are 5 steps to accelerate digital transformation, and pandemic COVID-19 encourage us to accelerate digital transformation. First, immediately accelerate digital infrastructure access, coverage, and improvement, as well as internet service provision. The second, prepare digital transformation roadmap in strategic sectors, for instance, government, public service, social assistance, education, health, trade, industry, and broadcasting. Third, accelerate national data center integration. The fourth, prepare digital talent human resources. And fifth, immediately prepare everything related to regulation, budgeting, and funding. Next slide. Our minister, Mr. Johnny Gerard Plate, says that Indonesia is entering digital transformation phase. We build digital ecosystem and infrastructure that pave the way to digital society. Next slide, please. This is about personal data protection. Personal data protection is part of human rights as stipulated in Article 28G paragraph 1 of the 1945 Constitution, Undang-Undang Dasar 1945. It is said that every person is entitled to do the protection of self, family, honor, dignity, and property under his or her possession, and safety as well as protection from fear to carry out or not to carry out human rights. There are two types. Next slide, please. There are two types of personal data. First, general personal data. For instance, full name, sex, nationality, religion. Personal data that is combined to identify someone. The second one is specific personal data. For example, medical data and information, biometrics data, genetics data, criminal record, child data, personal finance data, and other data in accordance with the provision of regulation and laws. Next slide. It is about penalties and fines, punishment. Deliberately obtaining or collecting personal data that does not belong to his or her possession with the intention of unlawfully benefiting himself or herself or another person. 5 years imprisonment and 50 billion rupiahs fine. Intentionally and unlawfully using personal data that does not belong to him or her. 7 years imprisonment and 70 billion rupiahs fine. Deliberately selling or buying personal data, 5 years imprisonment and 50 billion rupiahs fine. National Data Center. Next slide, okay. The National Data Center or Pusat Data Nasional is a collection of data centers that are shared by central agencies and local governments and are interconnected. Currently, there are 2,700 data centers or servers rooms spread across 630 central and regional agencies. The National Data Center will slash them to 10 to 20 data centers or servers room nationwide. This is the location of our national data centers in Jabodetabek, Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, and Bekasi, and Batam Island, the new capital of Indonesia, Labuan Bajo. And the next slide is about what we are doing to literate digital financial to the public. We have the program, namely Literacy Corner. Across 2021, the Directorate General of Public Information and Communication has carried out 9 interactive dialogue activities under the Literacy Corner program and 2 television dialogues on education and dissemination of financial inclusion and literacy. Successfully netted 3,389 participants, online and offline, from 9 interactive dialogue activities. In the frame of the Financial Inclusion Month, dissemination was also carried out through our off-home or OOH advertising. Next slide. This is the product of a financial literacy content. First, things to do to avoid illegal fintech lending. Immediately delete fintech lending offering SMS. How to check fintech lending legality and protect personal data. Content production as dissemination material in social media. We are also doing digital literacy for raising awareness of financial consumer protection in Indonesia. First, we educate people with digital skills, digital safety, digital culture, and digital ethics. Next slide. The Ministry of Communication and Information is also one of the members of Investment Alert Task Force or Satgas Waspada Investasi. The task force is formed in 2007 with 12 members, namely OJK, Bank Indonesia, Ministry of Communication and Informatics, and 9 other government ministries and institutions. The task force aims to prevent and overcome illegal investment practices. The task force, particularly MCI and OJK, consistently improves the community literacy by webinars, information contents, and press release regarding illegal fintech, starting from how to identify to its consequences if people get involved with them. Next slide. The MCI, the Ministry of Communication and Informatics, has taken down 4,873 illegal fintech platform from digital platform from 2018 to October 2021. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kansong. This was an excellent overview and a good reminder of the role of digital literacy and data protection as key enablers for effective financial education and consumer protection policies. This was extremely interesting and indeed very important. So with this, I would like to now give the floor to Mrs. Dora Lee, General Manager at the Investor and Financial Education Council in Hong Kong, China. Please, Dora, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chiara. So before I start, I'd like to first of all thank the OJK and the OECD for the kind invitation for me to present and share our experience from Hong Kong. Thank you, Mr. Sigara, for your excellent keynote speech, and my fellow panelists, Mr. Ken Song, and also Ms. Beckett. So I would like to cover a little bit about what happened in Hong Kong, in particular during the COVID-19 pandemic, how actually we use financial literacy digitally, and help people to go to the financial resilience. Next slide, please. So financial resilience, as per Kiara just mentioned, has a lot of different folds. And it is different in different areas, in different countries, and in different segments. But two fundamentals are important in terms of financial resilience. First of all, in order to build financial resilience, you need to actually know financial planning and management, how to actually select financial products, and how to manage your money wisely. But at the same time, you also need to actually learn about how to protect yourself against financial losses. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is that during the COVID-19 pandemic, which actually get everybody off guard, this is actually a very important agenda. Next slide, please. So this is actually our annual report's front cover photo. It shows that we are all experiencing a new normal under the COVID-19 pandemic. It affects everyone, children, adults, students, parents, and even the elderly as well. So there's a new normal life of living. There's restricted human contact. A lot of things you need to do it at home instead of going out. And a lot of information, you will have to get it digitally through online. Next slide, please. So last year in August, we actually conducted a borrower study. It was before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. We actually asked respondents about whether they have taken out personal loans or credit card debts in the past 24 months. And not surprisingly, around 40% of the respondents say that they actually borrow more compared to the period before the pandemic, primarily in particular triggered by reduced or underemployment. We look into the data collected. That's the main reason. A lot is because of the lower income or even underemployment, or some are even unemployed. That accounts for almost 80% of the reason for borrowing more compared to a year ago. There's also an increase in living expenses and also unexpected expenses, in particular as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we look into these data and we actually have some action pointers. We look into how we should actually promote consideration of affordability in terms of loan, and also the importance of comparison of credit products for these borrowers in particular. Next slide, please. So in September, we launched a TV campaign and also coupled with social media. The theme is to keep your finances in good shape, to remind the public that both physical and financial fitness are just as important, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. We also actually give a lot of basics of financial management about saving, debt management, investment, retirement planning, even insurance protections, which contribute to financial fitness. All these information are actually easily accessible through our online website. We actually had a very good TV campaign together with social media campaign. We had about 5.4 million video views in terms of these finances in good shape videos. We organized Facebook talks to talk about how do you actually keep yourself in good financial fitness during, in particular, the pandemic. And also we did a post-campaign research. The result is pretty encouraging. The campaign awareness is about 52%, and majority, almost 100%, they agree that the advertisement reminded them to be careful about borrowing. And 44% actually, after the campaign, said they will make sure that they will have the ability to repay the loan before borrowing. Next slide, please. With this campaign, we also actually take the opportunity to promote a great suite of digital learning and also money management tools, which IFEC has been developing during the past years. We have over 20 different digital tools in our website. We also have a money tracker app, which is available both in the iOS and also Android for people to actually download and actually help them to manage their daily finances. So these will help a lot because a lot of people now being stranded at home will not be able to go outside, and we do not actually can conduct these outreach face-to-face programs anymore. So that's why we actually highly recommend people to actually go to the website, check out their needs, and also use our tools to help them plan their finance. Next slide, please. Another important issue that we actually find out during the pandemic is that there's a big rise in online financial scams. So that actually is a very important agenda in terms of financial resilience, because people need to understand more and need to learn about how they can actually protect their own money and also manage their finance wisely. So according to the Hong Kong Police Force, there's a big rise in terms of financial scam cases. There's about 90% increase in terms of the cases, and also the investment scam numbers and also the losses are very big in terms of the losses. Even the first 6-7 months of 2021, we see a total loss of reported cases about $321 million US. So we can see that it's a very serious situation. And according to the SFC, about 20% of the market manipulation cases under the SFC investigation are so-called rent and dump scams, whereby a lot of people get their information or some claim that they are financial experts to give them insider information to buy a certain stock. And then afterwards, when these stocks, the prices rise, the scammers sold all these stocks, and all these people lost their money as a result. Next slide, please. So in view of this serious situation, in March this year, we launched another above the line campaign with videos about 3 very serious scam cases, alerting the public to not to fall prey to online financial scams. The key messages include the online transaction scams, the pushing scams, and also the social media scams. Probably because of people stay at home and they watch TV a lot more, and also they go to social media more, it seems that we receive very good results as a result of the campaign. For the TV alone, we receive about 69.4 million gross impressions, and the online ad actually received about 9.5 million video views. We also developed a specialized online quiz to test people's knowledge in real-life situation about being scammed, and we get about 52,000 visits. So the results are quite encouraging. And we actually had also a research result afterwards to look into how people actually perceive and actually get these information. Next slide, please. So we found that actually it's a good result. 65% of the respondents in our retail investor study conducted this April said they are aware of these rent and dump social media scams. But we found that actually young investors are relatively low about the knowledge. Less than half of them learn about this. And also it doesn't seem to have a big interest in terms of female investors. So that's why we need to actually deepen the communications on the key characteristics of different scam tactics. And we work with different stakeholders to help that on. Next slide, please. So we collaborated with the SFC and also the Hong Kong Police Force to do better education to the public by showcasing these serious scam cases through a press event just in late September. So during the press event, explained to the public about the real-life tactics of these rent and dump scams. For example, quoting a serious case of a 23-year-old lady piano teacher who got scammed of over about $1.16 million to raise people's awareness and ask them to take caution. The SFC also warned people that they should be actually taking extra caution if they were being offered investment tips and insider information. So these actually are quite effective to raise people's awareness to the public because it actually grabs a lot of media coverage. But going forward, we will be actually looking into more vulnerable groups and the elderly segment, and then we will be actually developing more of these digital tools to actually raise the digital resilience and also help them to actually learn more about these cases. Thank you. So next slide, please. This is the end of my presentation. I look forward to discuss with you more about the situation on the digital financial literacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dora, for sharing your experience of the rising indebtedness of the population and greater exposure to online financial fraud and scams. I'm sure this resonates with many people in the audience, and this is probably also happening in many other countries. And it was extremely interesting to hear how you're dealing with the challenges and the programs that you have been implementing. So I would now like to pass on the floor to Mrs. Rachel Beckett, who is National Partnerships Lead at the Retirement Commission of New Zealand. Please, Rachel, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon or good evening for some of us as well. It's so great to be here, so thank you very much for having me. And particularly, I want to thank OJK and OECD for hosting this great event. Conferences don't come easy, and particularly in a pandemic, as we're touching on, extra hard, I imagine. I'd love to be in Bali with you, but hopefully another year. So today I'm going to talk to you about digital financial literacy and learnings from New Zealand. Next slide, please. So just a quick synopsis on what I'm going to cover. I'm going to start with talking a little bit about our data here. So what do we know? What are some key features in the data through the pandemic, particularly the themes on rising inequities, a lack of savings buffer, and more people needing help? And then I'll talk through what tools are available. So we have a money management website, which is quite well used, called Sorted is the brand. We have a financial wellbeing for workplaces program as well. And then we also have a schools program. And a lot of this is digital tools, which is very useful, obviously, when we're in a pandemic. And then I'm going to touch on how we adapted our response during and after the pandemic with some good examples from a couple of our partners. I'll talk about the Buy Now, Pay Later campaign we've got going on, some of the other tools, and a little bit of good news from the pandemic. Obviously not all, but some. Next slide, please. So there's been some recent consumer impact studies done, and what was useful is this was pre-pandemic and then during and current as well. And I think this would probably be echoed in a lot of markets, I imagine, from what I'm hearing with some of my fellow speakers, is it is unequal, the impacts of this pandemic. So what we're seeing through this survey, which was done on 1,700 households, was we're seeing a lot of significantly overrepresented groups sitting in the at-risk and then in the financially secure part. So people at risk are more likely to be, sadly, our Indigenous population, which is Māori, Pacifica, young people, households with children and renters. And then we are actually seeing people become better off financially and more financially secure during this time. And they are more likely to be high income homeowners, often older and full-time workers. So these are people that have been sitting at home, often in lockdown, not spending the same amount, or their incomes have risen, so they're actually able to save a lot more and be better off. So just some quick stats there. What we saw through this study was 6% of people accessed KiwiSaver early, and KiwiSaver in New Zealand is retirement savings scheme. That's the main one. And so people are accessing that early to help them with the hardship situation, which is obviously going to impact on their long-term retirement savings, which is a real shame. We also saw 11% of people lose their jobs during this time, and then about a quarter of individuals were accessing government financial assistance. And something else that was interesting through this is we did see a similar amount, about that 26% of people that had lost incomes during this time, but we did also see about 18% of people increase their incomes. So again, it just shows that divergence between the two groups. Next slide, please. So there's also an interesting study done through one of our major banks in New Zealand, and what we're seeing as a major issue is just a lack of savings buffer. So people, not a lot of, well, there's a huge group of people that don't have emergency savings. What we're seeing though is cash balances are higher, so it is actually getting better than what it was before. It was 48% of people before pandemic, and this was done on 500,000 customers, didn't have $1,000 saved for a rainy day, and that's gone down to 40% now. So still not amazing, but it is an increase in cash balances. But we are still seeing close to half of these customers having trouble or just coping. Next slide, please. We do in New Zealand have a Money Talks helpline, and what this is it's just a phone number that anyone can call. It's free to use, and it's asking how they can get help. This helpline puts people onto free financial mentors to help people through the situation, get food parcels, that sort of thing. And they did see a 38% increase in call volumes from this last quarter when we were in a lockdown situation. And what they're seeing, which is quite interesting, is people are wanting to use web chat more. And they think that might be because some level of anonymity instead of talking to someone on the other end, which might be a little bit more confronting via a web chat, seems to be more comforting for a lot of people at the moment. So an interesting trend. Next slide, please. So in terms of tools available, I know Mrs. Lee mentioned something very similar actually, and we have the same sort of thing. It's a website that people can go to. It has a lot of those sort of same tools that were touched on, and people can self-manage their money and find help and find calculators and the like. And we also have up there quite a lot of guides that get updated regularly. So it might be guides and blogs depending on what's topical. And we saw some huge increases in traffic to applying for a KiwiSaver hardship, which is what we touched on earlier, that people wanting to access the retirement savings scheme. And then also a really popular blog was COVID-19 and your money, 7 things to do right now. And that was basically encouraging people, okay, what is important in times of uncertainty? How can we set your goals and build financial resilience during this time? And this website traffic was up about 16%, it was year on year, from pre-pandemic to then during pandemic, and 1 in 5 New Zealanders use this every year. Next slide, please. We also have Sorted at Work, which is a workplace facilitated sessions on all sorts of different financial topics. There's one for women in there as well, or there's bite-sized pieces about investing. Typically before the pandemic, the most popular ones were 1 or 2 day courses that were taught in workplaces. And now, obviously during the pandemic, we've had to switch more to webinars, and that is more popular for obvious reasons. But what we're also seeing is people are wanting to then get bite-sized content. They aren't really obviously virtually wanting to sit through multiple days worth of content. They sort of want maybe an hour here and doing that weekly. But we are seeing a big uptake. So the workplace partners that we have for this have doubled. And my colleagues that run that scheme have said that they are noticing that employers are coming to them more frequently because they are seeing how productivity does go down for the employees if they're concerned about money. They do understand that research link, which is encouraging. Next slide, please. We also have a schools program. This is not mandated though, so we're still trying to work our way in there. It's currently in 67% of secondary schools, and this is all digitally delivered, which is really useful. So teachers can sort of assign it and get kids online doing it, and it's through a few different subjects, which gives it some flexibility. obviously we weren't able to push this too much during lockdown situations. Teachers definitely have enough on their plate, but we are looking, this should hopefully step up a little bit more as well. Next slide, please. I'm just getting a little bit of feedback there. I don't know if someone else is not on mute. We'll go to the next slide. Thank you. So now onto the final part, how were we adapting our response during the pandemic? So one particular solution we've found at the moment is we're hearing a lot from our partners who are working on the front lines with customers in quite hardship situations that debt is becoming a massive issue, and what we're really seeing a problem with is buy now, pay later schemes. So obviously buy now, pay later when used right can be a useful tool, but we're seeing a lot of clients with 6 or 7 buy now, pay laters going on at any given time, going into quite a hardship crisis situation, paying for groceries, using it, and then it becomes a little bit of a downward spiral. So we brought together a lot of our partners to run this campaign, and our partners are alternative lenders who can help for free or can help talk to creditors on their behalf and work with customers to get them out of debt. And there's also some micro lending schemes in there as well. So this joint campaign is in market at the moment, so we're hoping that people can sort of think twice before they use the scheme and in the lead up to Christmas, which we expect would get worse. We know that about 1/3 of adults in New Zealand are using it, and 63% of those using it are concerned about their debt. So that, yeah, is a bit of a problem, but also hopefully we can work to resolve this in the future. Next slide, please. The most popular webinar that was offered during the pandemic for workplaces was a new one that we devised called Design Your New Normal. And that was all about what's important in times of uncertainty, how to build your financial resilience. And that was the most widely delivered webinar and most popular for all of our workplaces during the pandemic. And yeah, I touched on the trends earlier. Something that banks have done that has been really useful, particularly in the realm of people that don't have that same level of digital capability, was they launched phone lines specific to people over 65 or over 70 in some instances. And they said that had really good uptake. They were working with customers, teaching them on the phone sometimes how to use phone banking, how to use online banking, or doing banking for them, obviously, in some instances. And that was useful because it meant that people only had a wait time of a couple of minutes, and that this was dedicated to them. And we are also seeing that same issue around scamming being a problem. And we do have data there that says 1 in 10 people surveyed are hesitant on going online for fear of being scammed, and banks have launched extra resources during this time, and they've also got a dedicated website for people to look out for scams, and they can self-survey and see where they're at with their knowledge of scams, which is good. And final slide, I think. So to summarize, obviously there's lots of opportunities through the pandemic, some good, some not so good. But to finish on a good note, we're seeing that more people are investing, so that is up 7%, and we put that down to micro investment platforms, which are becoming more accessible, but also the fact that people are engaging with their money and looking for ways that they can use it better. We are seeing bank cash balances go up. Mentioned that earlier, one of the bank's examples, but quite a lot of our banks are saying the same thing, which is really encouraging. People are saving more, and they're noticing that it's actually the younger demographic that is doing the best in terms of saving more than what they were before. And then something else that's really worked well is having that national strategy for financial capability, which brings partners together. We run webinars with the financial capability community quite regularly, and we're able to see really quickly what the issues are, and they can tell us what they're seeing, like for instance that debt issue and buy now, pay later, and then we can work together to resolve it as a community. So thank you very much for listening. I'll hand you back to Chiara. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. This was an excellent overview of how the household finances of New Zealanders have been impacted by the pandemic, and it was very interesting to hear how you've been adapting your various tools to the new situation. So thank you for that. It was extremely interesting. So I think we still have a few more minutes before closing this session. So I wanted to use the opportunity to pick up on one of the questions that have come through the Q&A function, and I would encourage all the attendees and participants to share more questions for our international and Indonesian speakers. So I see a question from Ratna from the University of Yogyakarta asking how can we access the measurement of financial resilience. So I think many of the speakers today are conducting their own measurements, and we have heard of various studies being conducted before and during the pandemic. I just wanted to highlight that as part of the work of the OECD INF, we put a lot of effort in coordinating international data collection on financial literacy, financial resilience, and financial well-being, and that we have been discussing with the members of our network about conducting a follow-up survey next year in 2022 or 2023 on all of these issues, financial literacy and financial resilience and well-being, to see how the situation has evolved with respect to the pre-pandemic crisis. And I also wanted to pick on one of the things mentioned by Rachel, meaning sometimes the challenges of reaching out to certain populations, especially elderly people, via digital means and online channels. So Rachel, you have already mentioned this. So I wanted to see if Dora or Tirtha would like to add anything in this respect, or Mr. Kansong as well, of course. So how do you make sure to reach out to vulnerable groups who may have difficulties with digitalization? So I see that Dora would like to intervene, so please, I can start with you. Please, Dora.
Thanks, Kiara. I think this is a very important agenda for a lot of markets, not just in Hong Kong. Elderly, actually, in particular, what we so-called young old segment, whereby they actually have a little bit more of digital literacy, I think are very vulnerable in a sense, because they actually use the social media, they use digital financial management tools. That's why we actually work very closely with some of the charity partners and NGOs to reach out to community centers for educating the elderly, so that they actually have a right way to go in terms of how they manage their finances using digital financial tools. That's one. Secondly, we see a rise in scams, financial scams, in different sorts of ways, targeting the elderly, whereby they have lifelong savings for retirement and for the rest of their living. So it's a very serious issues as well. And in that note, we actually have just developed a little game to actually showcase the 8 scenarios about financial scams to elderly. But for the elderly, you can't actually just use a digital tool and they will just do it themselves, or they will just use it themselves. They need a very integrated mode in terms of like a blended learning. So usually we will work with partners to do actually introduction sessions. It will be actually both in terms of a physical education seminar workshop coupled with digital tools together. And that way we can also measure the impact afterwards, see whether they actually have improvements for that.
Thank you very much, Dora. Yes, indeed, this is an issue in many countries. So let me check if Mr. Tirtha Segara would like to also share anything in this respect, please. And yes, thank you for staying on during the panel.
Sure, no problem. Yes, thank you, Kara. Thank you for the questions. Actually, we can also empower the communities or social group in the communities. Because as also I mentioned earlier that one of the challenges is the mobile phone or gadget ownerships. So not everybody, not all adults in Indonesia also own the gadget or mobile phones to proceed with the digitalization. So we empower the communities. At least in one group of the communities, they have one of gadget. Then they may teach all of them. Also for the small businesses and micro businesses also to get on board in the e-commerce. We also train a couple of people in the group, and then we empowered the community leaders in the group to train others in their group. So we empower the communities in this case. Thank you, Kiara.
Thank you very much. So let me check if Rachel would like to add anything in this respect about other groups, maybe not seniors who may have difficulties in using digital financial tools. You don't have to. I'm just giving you the opportunity if you would like to add any final words on this.
Thanks, Kiara. No, nothing to add at this stage.
Yes, and Mr. Kamsong, anything to add in this? How from your programs on digital literacy, do you adapt them to people with limited skills?
Yeah, like I said before, that there are two functions or duties of the Ministry of Communication and Informatics. First, we are doing digital transformation. It means that we build infrastructure in remote areas that cannot get telecommunications access, particularly the underdeveloped frontier and outermost areas. So the people there can have access to digital finance. And the second, we educate people, we empower people by digital financial literacy. And like Pak Tirta said, that in Indonesia, maybe about 80% until 19% have a gadget, have a cell phone number, but only 50% until 60% has a bank account number. So we empower vulnerable people by make the phone number as a bank account number. Yeah, so they have access to digital finance. I think that's my answer, Kiara.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much for sharing these additional insights. So I think our time for this session is over. I see that more questions are coming through the Q&A, and I would of course invite the panelists to reply in writing if they have any additional insights to share. And with this, I will pass on the floor to our MC for the closing of day one. Thank you very much for listening, and to all the panelists for the great presentations. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Kiara. It's really great to having this session. We have very fruitful discussion, and you lead the discussion is very excellent. Thank you very much to Kiara as our moderator for our second session, and to our speakers for this session. Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we are almost end of this day one. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to extend our appreciation today to everyone for attending today's event. So we hope that all of you gain new perspective and make sure that you gain a lot of experiences from our speakers from our 2 sessions today. Look forward for our next discussion tomorrow. So for tomorrow, we still have session 3 and also session 4. Please be noted that session 3, we will start at 2 p.m. sharp, Western Indonesia time, or 8 a.m. Central European time. And we will start the conferences room an hour before. That's it for today. Once again, thank you attending this conference. We hope that we can see you tomorrow. Please enjoy the rest of the day. Stay safe.